chosen ones, empaths, not all, won't assist in the category of traumatic events pertaining to demonic possession because they're not well equipped to understand this, and they are not recommended to handle the spiritual side of therapy or trauma. But what they will handle is how the demonic entities made you feel without actually confronting the fact that people have actually seen these black, voided eyes, faces full of demonic hatred, entities that dwell inside of loved ones at certain times they are revealed. Okay. So having said all that, I would like to share the fact that I am a diagnosed narcissist. My diagnosis came 3 years back now. I should mention that I stumbled into my diagnosis. I didn't seek treatment for it. I didn't believe my therapist and I didn't believe my family. The point I'm trying to make is I didn't make a conscious decision to heal. I was forced to do it. I guess God chose me through multiple narcissistic injuries and an ego death. I do talk about the story of my collapse and my redemption and my awakening and my healing in my other video titled What God Does to a Narcissist. But this is an entirely different subject altogether, so I'll move on. If you're interested into knowing how I became self-aware, that's the video for you. I will backtrack a little bit and say that although I've heard all these stories about demon eyes, icy voided eyes, people saying they saw demonic faces in their partners during rage fits, and to tell you the truth, to me it all sounded ludicrous and maybe they wanted attention or something, who knows. But it seemed like complete and utter nonsense for many years to me, and I just assumed people were mistaken or maybe seeing things. I don't know. But after hearing about this so many times, I discovered this phenomenon is a real thing, and it's sad but true. People are seeing these horrific demons, the soul of demons, in their partners. Ghoulish, nightmare fuel, gruesome, frightening. All these words do apply. I have stared into the icy void of my mother's eyes as a child. And chosen ones, this is your last chance to get out of this video. I don't know my age at the time, but if I had to place my age when I saw this stuff, I would say anywhere between 7 and maybe 10 at the most. But to be honest, I really don't know. I just know I was a very young boy. There are blocks in my childhood that are forgotten, periods of my life I don't recall, but I do manage to remember this through therapy. And again, I want to stress this is only done to spread awareness and solidify the truth tellers out there that speak of these demonic entities. The black eyes, the void, these are all things people see when a narcissist rages out. And now for me, I remember sitting on a couch. I was pretty young again. The apartment that we lived in was very cold, like all the time. I remember wearing a jacket inside the house all the time. I'm not sure now, but I would only assume that at the time we couldn't afford heat. And I know we were pretty poor. I know my father had already left us. And I do recall we did live without electricity for many years. However, I remember sitting on the couch. The TV was on, so I know at that point we did have electricity, but my mother was sitting in a chair next to me, and I'm not entirely sure what started this whole thing and what was actually said to spark the rage. And I don't even really know what she was upset about even now, but I'll just tell you things that I do remember. Now, prior to this, I do want to say my mother was at times a very loving mother and showed incredible acts of empathy. And I do love her, although what I'm about to say might contradict it in some ways. But anyway, she said I was a bad boy that didn't listen to his mother. And I remember she said bad boys always get punished by witches. And she said I wasn't listening, and I don't know how many times this happened, but I would assume it happened 3 to 5 times from what I remember. But I remember instantly begging and pleading and screaming at her to not show me the witch. Do not bring the witch out to punish me. I remember crying, screaming, completely and utterly petrified. My voice started to fade away from the screaming, and I'm not entirely sure how long I screamed for or what exactly was happening, but I was frightened. I can't explain the amount of fear that I had at that time. She rose from her chair and looked at me and said, I have to learn the hard way now. And from my recollection, there was a small bedroom and she ran inside the room and slammed the door. I remember thinking about trying to leave out the front door and trying to get out into the street, but I didn't want to get caught. And I wasn't sure if I could make it in time before the monster or the witch caught me. But anyway, I remember being frozen to the couch and trying to cover my face so I do not see the witch. I remember as I heard a door opening up, the chills coming up and down my spine, and I began to shake and shiver, and my heart pounded out of my chest. I remember smelling garlic, not sure where that came from. I knew that the witch was coming to possibly eat me, and I could hear the witch screeching, the scratchy voice saying that she's gonna bite my head off. She was very hungry. I remember shaking and sweating and crying, all at once being equally hot and cold. I remember feeling like I'm gonna pass out and fighting with myself to not run. Somehow I believed I deserved my punishment, so I wanted to accept it and get it over with. But all of a sudden the witch was in front of me, and the witch was actually my mother with a demonic face, black eyes, icy voids. They reminded me of burnt, hard-boiled eggs. My mother had a very shocked look on her face, and I just remember the voice screeching and yelling at me. Her eyes were black holes from another dimension. I did not run. I did not hide. I sat there petrified, shocked, and my heart felt like it was collapsing, my breath irregular. At one point, I wanted to run underneath the couch or get underneath the blankets, but she took everything away. I knew there was no hiding from the witch. As the witch was screeching and yelling at me at the top of her lungs, my heart hammered out of my chest, was covered in sweat. She lifted me off the couch and made me look into her deep, dark eyes, darker than the dark side of the moon. These are eyes that were no longer my mother's eyes, but black holes from another dimension, lumps of black hole. I remember being shocked with the ease and strength my mother had at the time. She seemed to be 7 feet tall. I knew that's not true. I knew it was my mother, but she did not look like my mother at all. She looked like an entity, a witch, a demonic force there to eat me. She threatened to eat me and bite my head off. I don't know when I stopped screaming, but her hand was covering my mouth, and I smelled candle wax and garlic. I tried to breathe through my nose. Adrenaline running, I thought there was something smothering me, but it was my mother's hands, of course. She seemed incredibly strong, incredibly evil, and incredibly mad, being in the presence of this enemy, this entity. My will was not my own, so she could do whatever she wanted to me. The witch was gonna do it anyway. This was one of the times I believed my heart broke into 1,000,000 pieces, and my belief in the world and anything good in the world crumbled in front of me. I remember the fear of being bitten by a serpent. She threatened to eat me. Sitting me down on the couch, my screaming stopped. I was petrified and scared to move. I did not want to get bit, and she said she was going to bite my head off. I don't know what was real, obviously, but I just didn't want to be bit, and she was threatening to kill me. Her teeth looked like the teeth of a polar bear, and she was screaming at me. I don't remember everything she was saying, but I knew at the time I was a bad boy, and I wasn't listening to her. I could smell brimstone and demonic scents, not knowing what this was exactly, but it was the smell of candles, I think. I don't know what she was saying, but there were more threats of her biting my throat. I couldn't see my mother anymore. And then her head rose up and she looked out the window. Behind me, I noticed there were lights of police cars, and I saw the softness come back into the face, and my mother came back. The demon was draining from her body in front of me. My body started to relax. The eyes that she had, normally blue like an ocean, the most beautiful eyes I've ever seen, they were a lot less black, and they were coming back to normal. I knew this would mark the end of my punishment that destroyed my soul. This made me lose hope. After this experience, I was afraid of everything from that moment on. I remember being afraid to speak loud for many, many years and to speak in such a soft tone as to not awaken that demonic spirit again. Her posture straightened up. She turned on the TV and ran in the bedroom, saying something about listening to the mother, and the door slammed. My front door started banging down. I knew help had arrived. These were police officers coming to save me. The evil spirit that was acting like my mother was gone, but I also knew it wasn't. This time I did race to the door, as if struck by a bolt of lightning. I tried to open the door, and all of a sudden my mother was there grabbing me by the back of my head as she pushed me backwards. I remember falling and striking the back of my head against the wall. She whipped the door open and the cold air rushed in to awaken my soul. The back of my head was oozing a warm liquid. Although it was refreshing, I felt blood on the back of my head. She went out to talk to the police. I could hear behind the door some laughter, walkie-talkies beeping, and my mother laughing. I don't know what exactly was said. I didn't hear much, and I don't know what happened, but she came back in and slammed the door, and everything was over at that point. I remember my mother feeling the warm blood stream down the back of my head. She had busted my head open on accident, I guess. And although it was a small cut, she did help me. She took care of me. My mother was back. The blue eyes were back. And I knew that there was no reason to be afraid anymore. But now I was covered in blood. But she realized I was cut and helped me out. I was in the bathroom with her, and there was cold water on the back of my head, a cold rag, and she was doing something, but the bleeding stopped. There was probably large sections of this story that I don't remember. Two things I know for sure is that she played the witch several times. She became a demonic entity somehow. To me, I saw these real black eyes, and I saw a demonic entity. And maybe I thought that was the end of it, although I knew it wasn't. It happened several times, and I knew she busted my head open several times during the course of my life. I would look out behind her every time someone came to the door, and she would throw me aside and bust my head open. It happened several times, but my heart slowed down and all the excitement and adrenaline wore off. I was feeling drained, and she looked exactly like my mother that I knew from before. I did not see the hatred or anything like that again, but I knew she would come back. And I also remember thinking that I know the police might come and stop the witch, but I'm not entirely sure how the police knew about the witch, or who called them, or how they came. I was never able to predict exactly when the witch would appear, but I know that the witch appeared at least 3 more times in my life. Her eyes did change colors. Her hair looked different, and she looked like a demonic entity from another dimension as a young boy. I don't know how she did it, but I know these things happened, and I know in my head I still have the scars in the back. I also know as a young boy I had many nightmares, many problems sleeping for many years of my childhood, but for some reason that night I slept like a rock. I also know as an adult I asked her why she did that to me, and her response was to simply laugh and act like she didn't even know what I was talking about. But I know it happened, and I remember this vividly. But I also know I blocked it out for several years. I don't know why my mother never admitted it, but there was plenty of things that she did she'll never give me an explanation for. And she did various evil things to my entire family on and off throughout the years. Fits of uncontrollable rage, violence. I came to realize that growing up, she was a traditional malignant narcissist. But I'm just trying to focus on this incident when she became the evil entity. Looking back on it now, I don't know how she did it, but I know it happened. Black, soulless, demonic eyes, petrifying a kid, ripping his heart and soul out, making him disbelieve in anything good ever in the world again. Having come to terms with it though, I realized there was nothing to ever be afraid of. And confronting these demons from my past, literally, there's never a reason to live in fear when you believe in God and you have Jesus Christ on your side. There's nothing to ever be afraid of. I know in Psalms 4-5 says, people should find refuge under God's wings and not fear the terrors of the night, Tears, I guess too, but terrors of the night. And I've also came to know that looking back at my childhood traumas in my life, I still have a lot of love in my heart for my mother. And all these things I said are facts and not exaggerated. These are just things I remember in my childhood. I still think my mother did the best she could with what she had and what she knew at the time. She never sought treatment for anything. She thought therapists were stupid and she never bothered. So she thought negatively of counselors and thought they were a scam. And I will add that as much as these demonic entities show themselves, we should not be afraid when we walk in the light of Jesus Christ. I also realize that for anyone out there that believes in demonic entities, possession, black demon eyes, I am now one of those people. And I know it's a completely and utterly factual thing that happened. If we take it upon ourselves to believe these things, that means the devil is real. But if that's true, that also means God is real. Whether you believe in God or not, me as a Christian, I must say that I do. And I understand that people don't. But if you don't believe in the demonic entities, if you do believe in these demonic entities and possession, is it really that much of a leap to believe that there might be a God as well? Isaiah 41 verse 10, "Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you, and I will uphold you with my righteous hand." Such beautiful words of comfort. I think any problem that we have can be solved and found in the Bible. This is where I found my redemption. My redemption and my path of healing came from God through Jesus. None of this is not possible. None of this is possible without Jesus. So I will leave you with that today, and I hope that underscores the dangers of narcissistic relationships and highlights the real stories that people hear and validate these claims of black eyes raging at them. By sharing this, I will only do this one time. This is a video I've been wanting to make for a while. Very difficult one to speak of. I do this for you, and I only ask that you subscribe, like, and comment.